Good morning, everyone. Let's start by confronting something we often overlook: the incredible creative power of the human mind. The reality you experience every single day is not some fixed, external force pressing down upon you. It's a reflection of what you believe, what you focus on, and what you consistently feed your thoughts with. That's not an abstract idea, it's a fundamental truth of psychology, one supported by neuroscience, philosophy, and lived human experience. The way you interpret the world determines how you move through it. If you wake up believing the world is unfair, that people can't be trusted, that life is an endless series of obstacles, your brain will find evidence to confirm it. That's how powerful perception is. It doesn't just react to reality, it constructs it. The filters in your mind, your beliefs, assumptions, and narratives decide what information reaches your awareness. You could be surrounded by opportunities, by people who want to support you, by possibilities waiting to unfold, and still miss them entirely because your mind is focused on the wrong thing. Think about this. Your brain receives millions of bits of information every second, but it can only consciously process a tiny fraction of that, perhaps 40 bits. So what happens to the rest? It gets filtered out. Your mind selects what fits your internal story. If your story says, "I'm unlucky," then even when something good happens, you'll explain it away as a fluke. If your story says, "I'm capable of growth," then every difficulty becomes a challenge, not a defeat. That's why mastering your thoughts isn't a luxury, it's survival. You have to discipline your perception the way a sculptor disciplines his hands. You don't just think randomly and hope for the best. You shape your inner world with intention, because that world is the lens through which you experience everything else. And here's the paradox. The moment you begin to take responsibility for your perception, you gain control over your life. The moment you stop blaming the world for your circumstances and start asking, "What can I do with what I have?" everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming an architect of destiny. That's not positive thinking in a shallow sense. It's not pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about aligning your mind with reality in its deepest form, the reality that while you cannot always control what happens, you can always control how you interpret it. You must understand something profound. Your emotions are not simply reactions to events, they are reflections of interpretation. If someone cuts you off in traffic, and your story is, "People are rude and inconsiderate," you'll feel anger. If your story is, "Maybe they're in a rush, maybe something's wrong," you'll feel compassion or at least calm detachment. The external event is identical, only your interpretation changes. That means every emotional response you have is an echo of the story you're telling yourself. So the question is, what story are you living in right now? Are you telling yourself that you're broken, that you've failed too many times, that it's too late to change? Because if that's the story, your brain will make sure your life matches it. But if you start to believe that growth is possible, that improvement is worth striving for, that every small effort matters, then your brain will reorganize itself to find the evidence for that too. This isn't magic. It's biology. It's psychology. It's the way your neural networks adapt, what we call neuroplasticity. The more you focus on gratitude, purpose, and courage, the stronger those circuits become. The more you focus on resentment, fear, and hopelessness, the stronger those circuits become. You are literally wiring your brain toward the future you believe in. That's the astonishing part. You're not just thinking. You're building architecture inside your head that decides how you'll feel, how you'll act, and what kind of life you'll live. Now, let's take that to a practical level. You might say, "All right, but how do I begin?" You start by observing your thoughts as if they were someone else's voice, because most of the time, that's exactly what they are: echoes of parents, teachers, peers, social media, experiences that have shaped you without permission. Watch them. Ask, is this thought helping me move forward or holding me back? And then deliberately choose better ones. Not blindly positive ones, truthful ones that move you toward action. When you wake up in the morning and think, I can't do this, today's going to be hard, challenge it. Replace it with, today might be difficult, but I'm capable of handling difficult things. That's a small shift, but it changes the tone of your entire day. Over time, that practice becomes habit, and habits, stacked together, create identity. The most powerful transformation begins in silence, in that internal dialogue between who you are and who you could be. Every time you choose to redirect your focus toward possibility instead of limitation, you take a step toward your highest potential. And that's what positivity really means. Not denial, not wishful thinking. It's disciplined hope, the courage to orient yourself toward the good, even when the evidence seems to point toward despair. And this brings us to something even deeper, the relationship between positivity and meaning. Because when you orient your mind toward the good, you begin to notice something extraordinary. That meaning hides inside struggle. That what makes life worth living isn't the absence of difficulty, but the transformation that emerges when you face it willingly. That's the transition into the second key point, the realization that challenges are opportunities in disguise. You see, people often believe that positivity means avoiding pain, keeping everything light and cheerful, pretending everything is fine. But that's not positivity, that's fragility. Real positivity doesn't come from escaping suffering. It comes from confronting it with purpose. It's the act of saying, yes, this hurts. Yes, it's hard, but I will use this. I will grow from this. Let's think about how nature operates. A seed has to break before it can sprout. A muscle has to tear before it can strengthen. A human being has to confront chaos before they can find order. That's the pattern of life: destruction preceding creation, discomfort preceding growth. So when you encounter challenges, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. Most people retreat when they face hardship because they interpret it as failure. They think, if things are hard, I must be doing something wrong. But in reality, difficulty often means you're exactly where you need to be. Growth demands discomfort because it's the friction between who you are and who you could be that generates transformation. Imagine you're standing in front of a mountain. You look up, and it's enormous, intimidating. That mountain represents your challenge, your fear, your past mistakes, your uncertainty. You can choose to stay where you are, resenting the climb, convincing yourself it's unfair that others seem to have easier paths. Or you can start walking, one step, then another, and something interesting happens with each step. You don't just move closer to the summit, you become stronger, more capable, more resilient. By the time you reach the top, you realize the mountain didn't shrink, you grew. That's the essence of a meaningful life, the willingness to climb, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Every challenge carries within it a hidden message. You are capable of more than you think. The obstacle isn't there to stop you, it's there to reveal you, but to access that truth, you must stop seeing pain as an enemy. Pain is information, it's a signal, it tells you where growth is required. If you're afraid of speaking up, that fear isn't there to silence you, it's there to show you where courage is waiting to be developed. If you feel insecure about your abilities, that discomfort isn't proof of inadequacy, it's an invitation to learn, to prepare, to strengthen. The problem is, most people run from pain instead of listening to it. They numb it with distractions, they suppress it with busyness, they bury it with denial. But what you refuse to face doesn't disappear, it multiplies. It follows you, shaping your choices, limiting your potential, whispering that you're not enough. When you finally turn toward it and say, all right, What are you trying to teach me? That's when growth begins. And here's something even more profound: challenges introduce you to yourself. You don't know who you are until life tests you. It's easy to be kind when everyone agrees with you, easy to be confident when you're succeeding, easy to be grateful when everything goes your way. But when everything collapses, when you fail, when you're criticized, when you're uncertain, that's when your true character emerges. And that's when positivity becomes more than an idea. It becomes an act of courage. So many people want a meaningful life, but they avoid the very experiences that create meaning. They want strength without struggle, wisdom without mistakes, growth without discomfort. But you can't have one without the other. Meaning emerges when you voluntarily confront the things that frighten you, when you stop running from chaos and start bringing order to it. And yes, that takes faith, not blind faith, but faith grounded in action. The belief that if you move forward with integrity, with honesty, with effort, something valuable will emerge from the struggle. It's the same principle you see in any great achievement. Behind every triumph lies a history of failures, rejections, and difficulties that refined the individual until they were capable of handling success. There's a concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that after adversity, some people don't just recover, they grow beyond their previous level of functioning. They become wiser, more compassionate, more focused. Why? Because they faced suffering and chose to extract meaning from it instead of bitterness. They asked, "What can this teach me?" And that question transformed them. So when you find yourself in a dark place, when you're overwhelmed, uncertain, afraid, remember, this is not the end. It's a chapter, and like all chapters, it's preparing you for what comes next. The storm is not just chaos, it's the birthplace of strength. The wound you carry is not just pain, it's the doorway to understanding. The moment you start seeing your struggles as the soil of growth, you begin to reclaim your power. That's what positivity really is, not an illusion that everything will be fine, but a conscious decision to face reality with courage and faith. To look directly into the storm and say, "I will not let this define me. I will learn, I will rise," because every time you do that, your character deepens, your perspective expands, and you begin to realize that life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. When you learn to see challenges as opportunities in disguise, something remarkable happens. Fear loses its grip. You stop dreading difficulty and start seeking meaning. You become stronger, calmer, more purposeful. You stop asking, "When will things get easier?" and start asking, "How can I become stronger to handle this?" That shift in question changes everything, and the more you practice it, the more resilient you become. Because resilience isn't built in comfort, it's built in chaos. It's built in the moments when you could give up but choose to continue. It's built in those silent hours when no one sees your effort, when no one claps, but you keep going anyway. That's where greatness is forged, in quiet persistence. The truth is, life will always contain suffering. You can't eliminate it, but you can transform it. You can use it as fuel, as a teacher, as a compass pointing toward growth. And once you understand that, every setback becomes sacred. Every hardship becomes a form of preparation. Every pain becomes a lesson wrapped in disguise. That's the paradox of positivity. It doesn't deny the darkness. It transforms it into light. It doesn't erase struggle. It gives it purpose. It doesn't promise comfort. It promises strength. And when your mind begins to align with that truth, when you realize that your perception creates your experience, and your challenges are shaping you for something greater, then positivity stops being a motivational slogan and becomes a way of life. It becomes the quiet confidence that whispers, "I may not be there yet, but I'm on my way." It becomes the steady voice that says, This is hard, but I've faced hard things before, and I've grown every time. It becomes the foundation for everything else that follows, for the ripple effect of positivity that transforms not only your life, but the lives of everyone you touch, and that is where the real journey begins. When we speak about positivity, it's easy to imagine it as a personal pursuit, a quiet battle within your own mind, a private discipline that shapes how you interpret the world. But if you stop there, you miss something profound. Your attitude is not confined to you. Every thought you nurture, every word you speak, every action you take, they ripple outward, touching people you may never meet, influencing lives in ways you cannot measure. That's the third truth about positivity. Its power multiplies through connection. You are a node in a vast network of human energy. Your presence changes the emotional atmosphere around you, and that is not a metaphor, it's a measurable fact. Neuroscience tells us that emotions are contagious. Mirror neurons in the brain respond to the expressions, tone, and behavior of others, replicating those emotional states internally. When you enter a room filled with negativity, cynicism, resentment, hopelessness, your nervous system feels it. You absorb it. Unless you are conscious, you carry it forward, passing it to the next person you meet. But the reverse is also true. When you choose to hold a posture of calm strength, of gratitude, of purposeful optimism, you shift that same atmosphere. People breathe easier around you, they stand taller, they speak more kindly, and that begins with a single decision inside you to be the one who brings light, rather than absorbs darkness. You've seen this play out before. You've been in the presence of someone who radiates something stable, grounded, good. It's not fake cheerfulness. It's something deeper, a quiet conviction that no matter what happens, they can handle it. Their composure invites you to do the same. You find yourself thinking, if they can stay steady, maybe I can too. That's the ripple effect of positivity. It's leadership in its purest form, influence through example, not authority. This is why your internal work matters so much. The way you think and speak doesn't just affect your personal outcomes. It contributes to the emotional climate of the entire environment you inhabit, your home, your workplace, your community. If you respond to difficulty with bitterness, you reinforce despair. If you respond with composure and perspective, you reinforce hope. That's how civilizations rise or fall, not through external catastrophe alone, but through the accumulation of millions of small emotional transactions among individuals. Every time you choose kindness over complaint, you contribute to that rise. Every time you resist cynicism and choose faith, you tilt the world slightly toward light. And that's not to say you must always be cheerful or deny pain, far from it. Authentic positivity does not mean suppressing negative emotions. It means integrating them, transmuting them into something useful. If you're angry, turn that anger into resolve. If you're afraid, turn that fear into courage. If you're grieving, let that grief open your heart to compassion. When you do that, you model for others how to handle suffering with dignity. You show them that it's possible to stay human in a world that often forgets what humanity means. Think about what happens when a parent remains calm during a crisis. The children watch, not just with their eyes, but with their nervous systems. They learn, I can face fear without collapsing. Think about a teacher who believes in a struggling student. That belief plants a seed that could change the trajectory of a life. Think about a leader who, in the midst of uncertainty, speaks words of clarity and strength. That steadiness ripples through a team, giving them the courage to keep going. These are not small gestures, they are world-shaping acts. You have that same power. The question is, how consciously are you using it? How often do you consider the emotional legacy you leave in your interactions? Do people feel lighter after speaking with you, or do they feel burdened? Do you bring perspective when others are losing theirs, or do you join the chorus of complaint? The truth is, you are always teaching, whether you mean to or not. Every moment you are demonstrating to others how a human being can respond to life. When you decide to be positive, genuinely positive, you're not just improving your own quality of life. You're raising the standard of everyone around you. You're telling them it's possible to endure and stay kind. It's possible to struggle and still believe. You become a lighthouse in a stormy world, and people are drawn to that, not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. But that kind of influence doesn't happen through isolated bursts of motivation. It requires consistency, the final key, the sustaining power behind all the rest. Because positivity, if it's to mean anything, must endure. It must survive on ordinary days, through exhaustion, through disappointment, through the long, slow seasons of uncertainty when progress is invisible. That's where most people fall away. They think positivity should feel good all the time. But the truth is, consistency often feels like boredom. It's repetition. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's maintaining discipline even when inspiration fades. You must understand something about human behavior. Emotion is transient, but commitment can be permanent. If you rely on mood to dictate your mindset, your life will always be unstable. Some days you'll feel inspired, and others you'll sink into apathy. But if you build systems, daily habits that anchor your focus, your gratitude, your purpose, then positivity becomes automatic, not accidental. It becomes a practiced skill, not a passing feeling. This is where people misunderstand the psychology of optimism. They think it's spontaneous, but in reality, it's cultivated. You can train your brain toward resilience the same way you train a muscle. Every time you choose perspective over panic, you strengthen that pattern. Every time you return to gratitude after disappointment, you reinforce it. And like any form of training, the early days are the hardest. You won't see results immediately. You'll question whether it's worth it. You'll relapse into negativity and think, I guess I'm just not that kind of person. But that's the very moment that defines you. Because persistence through imperfection is what transforms effort into identity. Consistency is not glamorous. It's waking up and doing the same foundational things every day, controlling yourself, monitoring your focus, practicing patience. It's staying kind even when it goes unnoticed. It's keeping faith in your goals when the outcome is uncertain. Over time, that quiet discipline compounds. You may not see the change in a day or a week, but in a year and 5 years you'll look back and realize your entire internal landscape has transformed. What once triggered anger now evokes calm. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable. That's the power of consistency. It makes positivity not situational but structural. And let's be honest, maintaining that consistency is hard precisely because the world rewards reaction, not reflection. Outrage spreads faster than gratitude. Negativity gets more attention than patience. That means you have to swim upstream against a psychological current designed to pull you into chaos. But that's exactly what makes it meaningful. The value of your discipline increases in proportion to the difficulty of maintaining it. When everyone else is distracted, your focus becomes powerful. When everyone else complains, your gratitude becomes revolutionary. The real question, then, is what sustains you when motivation fades? What keeps you consistent when positivity no longer feels easy or natural? The answer lies in meaning. You need a reason, something larger than comfort or recognition. You need a vision of the kind of person you want to become and the kind of world you want to help build. Because meaning is the engine of endurance. When you tie your positivity to a purpose, to serving, leading, growing, loving, it becomes resilient. You stop asking, why should I keep trying, and start thinking, how can I honor what I'm capable of? In those moments when everything feels heavy, you must remember that consistency is not perfection. It's persistence. It's falling 7 times and standing up 8. It's forgiving yourself when you slip back into negativity, then recommitting to the path. Too many people give up because they mistake imperfection for failure. But every time you return to your values, you strengthen them. Every time you catch yourself drifting and realign, you reinforce your integrity. That's how transformation happens, not in a single epiphany, but through thousands of small corrections. Consistency also means setting boundaries around what you consume, the conversations you engage in, the media you absorb, the people you surround yourself with, because positivity cannot thrive in contaminated soil. If your environment constantly feeds you fear and outrage, your mind will mirror it, so you must guard your focus like a fortress. Choose inputs that challenge you to grow, not ones that keep you in despair. Spend time with people who hold you accountable to your best self, not those who validate your worst impulses. That's not elitism, that's responsibility. You can't control everything around you, but you can curate what you allow into your mental ecosystem. And once you build that internal stability, something fascinating happens. You start to become trustworthy. People begin to rely on your steadiness. You become the kind of person others seek when they're lost. That's what consistency earns you credibility. Not because you're perfect, but because you're dependable. Your words align with your actions. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force. And in a world as volatile as ours, that's rare currency. Think of someone you admire not for their talent or wealth, but for their character. What sets them apart is not the occasional grand gesture, but the predictability of their goodness. They do the right thing even when it's inconvenient. They show up even when no one's watching. They speak truth even when silence would be easier. That's consistency, the quiet backbone of greatness. So, when we talk about positivity, we're not talking about fleeting enthusiasm. We're talking about a lifestyle grounded in discipline, reinforced by purpose, and expressed through steady action. Because when positivity becomes consistent, it evolves from self-help into leadership. It becomes the force that reshapes communities, families, even generations. You see, every act of consistency amplifies the ripple effect we spoke of earlier. When you consistently practice patience, others learn patience. When you consistently speak with respect, others mirror that tone. When you consistently hold a standard, others rise to meet it. That's how culture changes, not through declarations, but through demonstration. The world doesn't shift because of what we say we value. It shifts because of what we repeatedly embody. And yet, this is the paradox. The longer you maintain consistency, the less dramatic it feels. You won't always feel inspired. You won't always see immediate impact. But underneath that surface quietness, deep roots are forming. The slow, invisible work of character is taking place. That's what makes it sacred. It's built in silence, proven in endurance, revealed in time. There will be days when you question whether it matters. You'll wonder if anyone notices, if your efforts make any difference. In those moments, remember that the most powerful transformations often go unseen. A single kind word might prevent a stranger's despair. A small act of patience might save a relationship. A moment of restraint might prevent a chain of anger from spreading. You might never know the impact, but it exists. That's the unseen economy of human connection, and consistency is its currency. So you keep going. You stay rooted. You return again and again to that quiet commitment to bring light, to hold steady, to be better than you were yesterday. And over time, your consistency becomes legacy. It teaches without words, it uplifts without demand, it influences without force. That's the power of positive persistence. It doesn't just build a life, it builds a lineage of strength. And this is where positivity reaches its highest form, not as a momentary mood, but as a moral choice sustained through repetition, multiplied through influence, quietly shaping the world, one consistent act at a time. The journey doesn't end here, because consistency and influence are not the conclusion, they are the foundation upon which the next truths are built. The continuation of a larger transformation that begins within and expands endlessly outward.